Hello, my name's Nick Watt. I work for The Guardian. Welcome to this Open Europe discussion under the very carefully worded question of will the new European Parliament kill off David Cameron's EU reform agenda. We obviously meet here at a very interesting time. It's been a week of lots of firsts. It's the first time that a party other than the Conservatives or Labour have won a national election since 1910, or if Mark Darcy was here, he may well say 1906. It depends whether you go on share of votes or share of seats. It's the first time that the Conservatives have come third ever in a national election, and it's the first time that the Labour Party thinks it can win a general election after such an appalling performance in a national election. That's sort of the UK picture. Obviously we have the European-wide picture. We're going to be discussing whether these elections are going to kill off David Cameron's EU reform agenda, and we've had potentially an early sign of those skirmishes with the row, which we will be talking about, over the Spitzenkandidat, and David Cameron saying so strongly that he does not want the EPP-favoured candidate Jean-Claude Juncker.
Now, in this process, the Spitzenkandidaten that the Socialists, your group, Richard, and the EPP have signed up to, they have gone directly against the wishes of the Council and against the Lisbon Treaty, in that the Parliament has tried to nominate the candidate. And the two candidates, you could say three if you took the ALDE one as well, but the two candidates, Juncker and Schulz, are therefore by definition saying we want more power to the Parliament because they're Parliament nominees. So if a key part of EU reform is to try and say we should have more decisions taken closer to the people they affect, more decisions taken by the national governments, and Europe really to consider its role and to have less Europe, more taken by national governments, then this first action of effectively aggression by the Parliament saying we want to grab this power play of nominating the Commission presidents is a big attack, in my view, against the direction of travel of reform, and it's attack against the powers of the European Council.
There are basically good news and bad news for David Cameron's reform agenda in Europe, and I will start with the bad news. Now, just to pick up what Vicky said, I think sometimes we do underestimate how incredibly important the European Parliament might be for successful renegotiation if Cameron is to be re-elected in 2015, but also indeed if any Labour government wants to pursue reform, the European Parliament will be important. If we follow the normal sort of co-decision procedure, which involves the European Council of Ministers, national ministers and MEPs basically jointly deciding an EU law, then we reckon that the European Parliament could well have an effective veto over half of the reform proposals that Cameron wants to push for. That's quite substantial. That's if co-decision is followed.
Now, what I think will happen, I'm not shocked that parties announce before an election who they would support rather than leave it till afterwards. But what I think will happen is that President Van Rompuy, who's been mandated by the European Council to consult, I think it's normal that he first tests the water to see whether the nominee of the party that won the most seats in the elections has a chance of securing the necessary levels of support in both institutions. I think that's the minimum respect you owe to the fact that the nominees were made before the elections. If that candidate is able to secure that level of support, then fine, he will go forward. If not, they will have to come up with another candidate.
And you're happy to vote for him?
But if I were Mr. Cameron, I would take this as an opportunity to say to Mr. Juncker, right, you want our support to be President of the Commission. This is my conditions. I want you to guarantee that you will engage, because after all, Juncker can deliver quite a few people with him, that you want to engage on this reform agenda, that you will support this point, that point, or another point. That, I think, would be a sensible negotiating strategy, rather than making a whole political fuss about something which actually isn't that crucial, because the Commission only proposes. Also crucial is who will he nominate as the British Commissioner? I have a soft spot for who I think would be a very good Conservative candidate. the outgoing chair of the European Parliament's Internal Market Committee, Malcolm Harbour, MEP. Britain traditionally seeks the internal market portfolio. If he were to nominate Malcolm Harbour, it would be very difficult for Mr. Juncker or any other President of the Commission not to give him the single market portfolio. That would be a huge prize for Britain.